Welcome to another Fireside Chat for January 20th. Late night Fireside Chat. Talk about stuff that's happening in the world. What's going on in the Volcano Prepper compound. Up here on the volcano, we had a long stretch. Opened the Airbnb in December, put the listing up and activated it, and boom, we had a lot of 3-night rentals stacked one after the other, usually with one day in between. And so pretty much we just finished a 5-night rental. People seem very happy, and that's the job. Make sure everything is perfect. And so the last month and a half, my focus has been just maintaining the guest suite that we rent out on Airbnb, and because it's a money kind of a gig, so it's like strip the sheets, wash the sheets, dry the sheets. As soon as they get out of the dryer, have to put them back on so they don't get wrinkled. And wash the towels, sanitize the place, the floors, the sink top, the countertop, everything in the place. Clean the windows, do some maintenance. There's always something that needs to be done. Water the plants in the lanai. We got some new cushions for the bamboo chairs on the lanai. Had them made up in town in Hilo. Little bit of arm wrestling with the proprietor on exactly how it should be done at the upholstery shop, but it got done and it came out pretty good. I mean, sitting on it, it's like very, very comfortable. So it's like the people that rented it last on the 5-night rental said it was perfect. The whole place was perfect, and I can't do better than perfect, right? So that's been my focus, and so the trench digging in between the rain and the focus on doing all the work for the Airbnb stuff, and that's been taking a lot of my time. But there's other stuff that I need to get going on. I really want to finish the trench and start the vegetable garden, build the bushcraft shelter, dig a cache for supplies of various types, somewhere where nobody, off in the jungle, where it's be pretty much impossible for anybody to find, and unless they know it's there or detect. And that's a whole nother thing, not to mention making sure it don't get wet, which is almost impossible to do in this environment. So I think my next trip to Home Depot will include several bags of black gold topsoil kind of a deal, and some Flex Seal for the cache. And all right, we'll talk about some current events. Obviously, today's January 20th, or tonight. It's getting late at night, and a new president of the United States was sworn in, and the vice president today. And obviously there is the Congress, which is now the LSD group has taken over. I'll let you guys try and figure out what LSD stands for, but I'll tell you at the end of the chat, or probably in the middle. But they have a whole slate of pre-filed gun control bills, and we'll just get to find out how bad the language is later, I suppose. But they're probably going to want everybody that owns a gun to register, to get some kind of gun owner identification card on the federal level, just because you own a gun. Total horse done. But they're going to pass a bunch of. The LSD group is going to pass a lot of anti-Second Amendment kind of stuff. And meanwhile, if you think gun registration is bad, let's talk about the UK. All my friends in the UK, I don't know if Mole or anybody from the old Fox Prepping Company chat still checks out my channel, because Ron has gone in a totally different direction than he used to with prepping, and his channel isn't really about that anymore. So, but man, you have to register your chickens. You literally have to register your chickens with I think it's DAFRA or something like that. Department of Agriculture, Farms and Rural Affairs, or something like that. Department of Environment, DEFRA, or some stupid, alphabet soup. And so they're basically showing up at people's houses who have registered their chickens. Chicken registration. What's the penalty for having an unregistered chicken? I don't know. But they show up in white hazmat suits, and they basically confiscate the chickens and are gassing them. So apparently somewhere, especially around Kent, and they have rules about what you can and can't feed your chickens. You can't feed them table scraps, even though they love it, and you can't feed them mealworms, which is like a staple for chickens, I guess. I'm not a chicken farmer. I haven't seen the pheasant around here lately. I don't know if it's because I've had a lot of people in the vacation rental and that they do tend to shy away from humans. Or there have been a couple, I've seen 3 feral cats in the area, and maybe feral cats did something nasty to the pheasants, or maybe they had some offspring that they did something nasty to. I don't know. Hatched some birds and then the cats got them. I can see a cat taking out one pheasant, and then the pheasant's moving on to a safer place. But the cats would just follow. But I can't see, the pheasants are kind of, well, it's not like they don't have any self-defense mechanisms, especially the male. But, and they can always fly away. It's just that they're so lazy. By the time they perceive a threat, it might be, from a cat, it might be too late. So, but what they're doing so I don't have any chickens here, and if I did, I wouldn't register them. They haven't made us register chickens yet, even in Hawaii, but I imagine they'll get around to it. Because it's not so simple as it's. People are comparing it to the Holocaust. People show up, but chickens aren't people. But they're showing up with gas trucks and hazmat suits and basically stealing people's chickens. And this is the government at the whim. So basically, what's apparently happened is one large chicken farm in Kent had some kind of bird flu, and which the government is blaming on some migratory birds who flew over and pooped, and this magic poop somehow caused the chickens to get infected, and so the government shows up at everyone's house in the area around Kent. And it doesn't matter whether their chickens test positive or not. If they don't have proof that they're negative, they don't have a negative test, then they just kill the chickens. it's not their property, but they registered them, so you're just shit out of luck. Chicken confiscation. And so, and they make you, not only do they tell you what you can and can't feed them, they make people keep track of the eggs if they sell them, to who they sold them, and how many got laid. Eggs got laid by the hens, and it's insane. So when you add it all up, I don't know if anybody besides me that watches my channel watches some of the other stuff on like about the solar space weather news or Ice Age Farmer, stuff like that. And I'll talk about that briefly for people who just they don't have time to watch everything, but you're watching my channel, so I'm going to try and just do a quick summary of some of the concepts that they're talking about. So it's like this. What's happening? They're going to print so much currency. I forgot who it was who actually said this, but it was, if you you don't need to control the people who make the laws. If you want real control, just control the currency. And they're going to print so much currency that, in every country is in this boat. It's not just the U.S., but the U.S., the stock market has been going up because the last few days, because Janet Yellen is going to, every person who plays in the stock market or invests or is a professional or has already heard that Janet Yellen, they're going to just print up money and buy stocks with it and throw it on the Fed balance sheet. So in order to prop up the market. The same thing happened in Venezuela. They could just print money. So it appears, because the numbers are going up, that the economy is doing well. And it's not just the fact of the stock market isn't the economy, but it's the value. Just because the numbers are going up doesn't mean the value isn't going down. Because the currency just becomes worthless, worth less or worthless, depending on how much they're going to print. Not to mention the Green New Deal. And here's the whole thing. It's not just the currency that's going to be a problem, or the banking system, or the derivative bomb, or anything like that. In case nobody has noticed, in the Second Amendment community, crypto had a kind of explosion over this year, the beginning of this year. And so if you're holding on to it in your own wallet and not at an exchange, you're probably happy about that. But the circumstances, if the whole economy falls apart, then there's still a question of being able to get the things you need, because they have to find a way to pay people and get them to show up at work. But here's the thing with the food and the confiscation of chickens. Okay, what are they trying to get a hold of and control of in order to control you or control the people? Everybody knows that with Twitter and F-Book and the YouTube, Google, it's not. We live in a and Windows. We live in a surveillance state. So everything you're doing is monitored by somebody, and that information is for sale. And the government records everything, the NSA, and what they do with it is a whole other thing. But so we got a surveillance state similar to China. In China, they just police have special goggles, and they can just use facial recognition, right? And where did my coffee go? Oh, here it is. I can't think without a coffee mug in my hand. They use facial recognition and special goggles, and automatically pops up on the sunglasses the person's social score, their credit rating, and whatever else a prying eyes communist government would want to know. So, and just by glancing at somebody. Now, here's the thing with the food. How do you control people? Well, not just know what they're doing, but obviously all the gun confiscation. Mao said power flows from the barrel of a gun, so they want to confiscate everything. I mean, they're going to make people get a federal like gun owners card. They're going to try and make people, but if you don't get one and they know you have a gun, then they have other ways to make you get that card, even if you don't want to get one. So if the whole currency gets switched to some blockchain, some Fed blockchain, which is not like most of the cryptos that people have, which are at least in theory decentralized. Some are more decentralized than others, but if you want your universal basic income, something else that they're going to print up and try and make their voters, constituents happy by giving them universal basic income. So you won't have to work. I mean, there's less and less employers nowadays anyway, and the way they keep raising taxes, there's going to be even less. But they're going to control what you can and can't spend your money on, and because it's centralized, if you want to buy something that they don't much approve of, then your money is going to be worth like 20%, or it'll buy 10% of they can program that in. So if you go to buy ammo or something with some kind of Fed coin, decentralized Fed coin, that they can make it worth 5%. And here's the thing with food: how else can you control people besides controlling guns and ammo and surveilling them? You control the food. People got to eat. So in the UK, people aren't allowed to have chickens anymore. They confiscate them and gas them. It's a massive campaign. It's like another chicken holocaust. And basically none of the chickens that they're killing actually have any kind of bird flu. They have an excuse, and they want, if the government is the sole source of where people can get food. And let's talk about this now. The lockdowns that are coming, they're going to lock down. They're going to say you can't go to a grocery store because people could transfer, because of the pandemic, on account of the pandemic. So they don't want, in order to keep everybody safe, they don't want people cruising down the grocery aisles and infecting anyone that way. So you're going to have to place your order online and then go for a pickup. And the employees will bring out whatever food you order online. Of course, you don't get to go down the store aisles and pick out the best fruit or vegetables. And when you order meat, no, you're not going to get meat. They're going to give you what they have, which will be, let's talk about that. Who's the biggest investor in Impossible Meats? Impossible Meats' biggest investor, Bill Gates. And who, in case you didn't know, has bought pretty much, and now currently owns the most farmland in America? Bill Gates. So you control the food, you control, and the means of producing it, like all the land. Then you control the people. I mean, he's pretty much demonstrated that he knows how to control things with Windows. Everybody in the world has his has to have his damn platform because nothing works unless you use it, and that's how they built it. It doesn't work that great even if you do use it. Anyway, at least anyway is better than right? Okay, so I'll go with anyways from now on when I need a pause to get my brain to catch up. So you're gonna have to use the government currency which they issue you and monitor and surveil and just control what you buy and where you buy it. And the people at the store, you don't get to pick out what you want. You place your order and they're gonna give you something close to it. And you're gonna get food or something like it, but they don't want you growing your own stuff. They need to exercise total control. And so if they know you have like a 40-round pea bag, but you don't get it registered, and you don't apply for your test, they're going to say, okay, you have to, in order to use your money for anything, you can't use your money until you register it. It's that kind of total state control of everything. And we're going to go deeper down the rabbit hole because we need to talk about weaponized, propagandized climatology science. That's generally wrong. And here's the thing about global warming. The whole theory that's being promoted as the reason for the New Deal and why they have to they're going to shut down the petroleum industry. I mean, they're just going to shut it down and ban the combustion engine. Because science, right? But the science models, and look, I'm not an astrophysicist, but the guy that runs Space Weather News website is, and I've been listening to him on his YouTube channel, and he's a pretty smart guy. So all the models are basically that support this whole global warming thing concept are based on human population pollution forcing the climate to change. And they're complaining about, everybody's seen the stuff with all the polar bears, the ice cap is melting and the polar bears are losing their homes. Save the polar bears. I mean, who doesn't like a nice furry cub polar bear? I mean, unless its mama is nearby and wants to eat you for lunch. Which it's perfectly capable of doing. A polar bear is a real force of nature. But the thing is, if you go backwards in history, if you take those climate models and try and make sense of the actual history of the planet using those climate models and go backwards, they don't work. That's because camera hiccup. Filled it up with stuff. So right. I don't even remember where I left off in my rant. But here it is. When you go backwards in history, the climate models don't work. And they can't they can't admit that their science is wrong. But there's other factors besides the human forcing. And the simple fact is, historically, after every time that the polar caps melt, the ice polar caps melt, immediately following that, there is an ice age. So we're on the cusp of entering an ice age. Massive global cooling. We're coming out of a solar maximum into a solar minimum, and the volcanic cooling has been at record lows, and now there's increased volcanic activity around the world. We're going to have more volcanic cooling. So they're shutting down the petroleum industry, even though this last year, because of all the lockdowns and shutdowns, the pollution has dropped through the floor. The industry has stopped. There's just a lot less pollution, but that's not helping anything. So we're going to need more pollution, not less pollution, just to counteract the effects of the sun. You know, we have that big thing in space called the sun that is on the surface of the sun is 6,000 degrees. The corona around it is like millions of degrees. It's counterintuitive. And there's a solar probe, the Parker probe, I think, with like a camera they designed it to try and be able to withstand the heat and the solar wind, which is particles that the sun emits, and it's going to fly like very close to the sun, do a few orbits. I don't know how many orbits it can do before it winds up being destroyed. It's a suicide mission, but it's an unmanned probe, obviously. So there's still a lot of care to be put into cameras that could actually gather information, because there's massive light and massive, so they have to be shaded, and there's massive particles from the solar wind, which is so. Basically, there's a lot of other factors. I'm not an astrophysicist, but if you go, the guy that runs Space Weather News and he actually wrote a book, a textbook that I think they sold out, that universities are buying on the sun. And so this basically, I was going to say stop doing LSD. Lousy, stinking Democrats, okay? Stop doing LSD. All right, so you got that part. This is basically weaponized, propagandized bunk climatology, using failed models that put forward the notion that human forcing can somehow affect our climate more than the sun. We're just like a tiny speck of dust orbiting around the sun. It's incredibly huge, and we're still learning about how astrophysics work. Because every climate model doesn't make sense so far that they've put forward. And so whether you think it's not human forcing, there's solar forcing, electromagnetic circuits, there's all kinds of concepts that I just barely can grasp. I mean, I went to UCLA, but I'm not an astrophysicist. So I think I'm going to cut out the and the so. I don't have a lot of extra space on the camera, but I'm going to be working on planting some fruit trees and get my vegetable garden going, and trying to get a mutual assistance group up and running in this area that I live. And like I said in my previous videos, I love the peaceful Zen nature of this property. But that doesn't mean I'm not paying attention to what's going on. And no matter how many channels they try and take down, so they can control the means of information, they can control the food, they can control the money, they can control the guns. Well, kiss your freedom goodbye. So you may want to just focus on trying to save your ass. And we'll try and hang on to our freedom too. But with the LSD is bad for you. Okay? LSD is really bad for you. Now, as far as that masked man who took the oath of office, who was that masked man? All I have to say about the election is this election was bullshit. All right, and I'll just end the video with that one. So, to see if it gets pulled down. I mean, you can't have a person actually on YouTube say what they actually think, can you? Apparently, lately, I mean, they took down President Trump, threw him off of every platform. And what did the Democrats want to charge him with servile insurrection or something? I mean, isn't that what they wanted to charge the 54th Massachusetts with when they were fighting the Confederacy, inciting servile insurrection and so the world's getting a little chaotic. Just a little chaotic. Don't you think? Yeah, so I would say try and avoid LSD, and it's bad for you. And I'm sure I had something else interesting to say, but for the life of me, I cannot think what it was. Oh yeah, the election was bullshit. Okay. So we're going to call this one right here. Thanks for checking out my Fireside Chat. Throw us a thumbs up. Y'all keep prepping. Y'all stay strong. And you can't save the world. At least try and save your ass. Because your asses are all worth saving, from what I've seen. This is HVS signing off from the Volcano Prepper compound. Catch you on the next one.